Hey Toy fans, D21 Beast Rob here, back with another Ghostbusters Select for you guys here today. And today we're looking at the Buster who's in it to win it, as long as there's a steady paycheck involved. Yes, that's right, we've got Winston Zeddemore, who was portrayed by actor Ernie Hudson in the film Ghostbusters. And fun fact for you guys, for many years, Ernie Hudson was actually my personal pick to play War Machine if an Iron Man movie ever got made. And while Cheadle's been great, I still wonder what this guy would have done with the role. Anyway, if you've seen my previous review of the Ghostbusters Select Ray figure, you may remember that I was a little bit let down by that figure. I'm hoping Winston here fares a little bit better, but let's get things started by taking a look at that packaging. As you can see, we do have this familiar massive window box packaging that we've seen with the Marvel Select figures and even the Universal Monster series from Diamond Select Toys. We've got the figure inside with all of his accessories displayed, the name for the figure at the bottom, and then the name for Ghostbusters off there to the left. Rotating this package around, we've got another image of Winston and that famous No Ghost logo. And then on the back of the packaging, we've got a very long bio for Winston. We've got an image of the figure off to the right, and then to the lower left, we've got the other figures available in this wave, Louis Tully and Ray Stantz. I've already reviewed Ray, be sure to check him out if you're interested, and keep your eyes peeled for that Louis Tully review coming up soon. Alright, Spook fans, that's the packaging. Let's say we get this blue-collar Buster out of the box and see what he's all about. And here we have Winston outside of the box. Now, one thing I forgot to mention in my intro, guys, is that there are two versions of this Winston figure currently on the market. There's the comic store retail version that you saw in the opening of this video, and then there's also the Toys R Us exclusive version, which is in a smaller blister bubble package that does not include a piece of the diorama that you can build once you have all the figures in this line collected. What's the diorama? Well, we'll take a look at that in just a moment. So I do have to say right off the bat, this figure reuses a lot of pieces from the Diamond Select Ray figure that I've already looked at, and by extension shares a lot of the same complaints I have. Now, like I said in my Ray review, there are a lot of great ideas that Diamond tried to put into these figures. I love the detail on the proton packs on the back. I love the range of accessories that they come with, and we'll take a look at those in just a moment. And I appreciate that Diamond tried to give us a great Ghostbusters figure in a 7-inch scale. But they do seem to fall short in a few areas on this Winston figure. Looking at Winston up close, I've got to admit, I don't think the likeness is there. I just don't see enough of Ernie Hudson in this face sculpt. I mean, it looks vaguely like Winston, so there's that. And they've even got his movie-accurate hairstyle from the first film. There's some nice sculpted detail there. But he's got some extra wrinkles in his forehead that I don't really think were there in the original film. Coming down the figure, we've got a very soft sculpt on the upper torso. And it's worth noting that that is probably the one piece that's different, aside from the head, between these two figures. You'll notice that the Dan Aykroyd sculpt here actually has a lot more detail in it. It's actually a harder sculpt, per se. And then the name tag is actually a bit shorter sculpted onto the torso than what we see here with the Winston figure, where we've got a much softer sculpted detail and a longer name tag on the figure. But then coming down the rest of the figure, the arms are the same on both sides, the lower torso, the waist area, all the way down through the legs. It's all the same sculpt between both of these figures. The belt for each one of these figures is actually somewhat unique. You'll notice that from the front, they do appear to be the same. Both have the walkie-talkie holster on the left, and whatever this device is here on the right. But as you rotate the figure around, Ray's got a trap holder on his back hip there. Winston doesn't have it on that hip. He actually has it on the other side. So they did actually kind of customize the belts to the figures, and I do appreciate that. The No Ghost logo is pretty clean on both of these figures, but like I said with the Ray review, I wish they would have had some sculpted detail for that patch to be on the arm, and not just have kind of tampoed it on the figure. Also, it should be noted that my Winston figure has a very loose right wrist joint, so it's actually pretty easy to pull this hand off. I don't have to pull very hard at all. And honestly, when I'm trying to pose him around, that's when the hand seems to pop out the most, so it's a bit disappointing. And you may remember in my Ray review that I said the proton pack looked like it was designed to come off. In fact, there's even sort of a peg system here where it's not coming off of my Ray figure, it's actually kind of stressing the plastic, but it looks like that the proton pack had been intended to be removable from the figures. Well, on the Winston figure, they must have, I guess, painted it too much, I'm not sure, but I can't actually get that tab to lift up. So there's no chance of this proton pack coming off the Winston figure. And just like I stated in my Ray review, having that proton pack on the back of the figure does tend to make him a little bit back heavy. In fact, I kind of wish I had a stand for this figure, besides the display base that he comes with, because I am constantly trying to catch this figure anytime I try to position him. And it should be noted, if you get the Toys R Us version of these figures, while you're missing out on the diorama piece, you are getting a flat display base that does include a peg stand. And these figures do have pegs in the bottom of their feet. Lastly, just like I mentioned with the Ray figure, Winston has a neutrino wand that's got sort of a V-clip on it, and it's meant to press onto the protrusion here on the proton pack. Now in the movies, the actual neutrino wands would slide onto the proton pack on a hook system and be very secure. But with these figures, you kind of have to press it onto that shape that's on the proton pack, and it just doesn't hold as well as you'd like it to. And really, for the most part, you're probably going to have your Ghostbuster holding their neutrino wand or just leaving it laying on the ground off to the side, which isn't ideal. I wish they would have done that a little bit differently on these figures. Accessory-wise, Winston comes with everything that you see here. We do have a proton stream that's sort of a hard orange plastic with a softer blue plastic crackling around it. It's nice to see that Diamond kind of did their own take on this, but I do think Mattel did it better in their Ghostbusters series when they designed this as sort of a translucent colored plastic. I think that actually looked better. There's no bendy wire in this, so it's going to stay in this sort of same general shape. And just like we saw with the Ray, Winston doesn't actually have a hole in the end of his neutrino wand to plug in the proton stream. Now you can kind of wedge it into the molded plastic design, I guess, of the neutrino wand to get it to stick out and fire, but it's really not meant to work that way. And Diamond did say at Toy Fair that in Series 2 of these figures, they will be including clips that allow you to place the proton stream more accurately into the neutrino wand moving forward. So we'll see how that works when the Series 2 figures comes out. Also, what you're seeing here is that Winston has a full array of hands, and like we saw with Ray, Winston has some flesh hands, but he also has these gloved hands, and you can actually pull off the hands and even remove this glove piece if that's what you want to do. It just slides right off. And then you can place on one of the flesh-colored hands, so you can have Winston with his gloves off. Now for me, the Ghostbusters look best when they actually have their gloves on. That's when they're in the middle of action, so that's how I prefer to pose the guys, but you do have this option if that's what you want to do. Lastly, Winston has this trap. Now this trap is actually sculpted very nicely, but it's got a few flaws of its own. There's a cable coming off the trap that is very, very finite. I feel like that's going to break, and it connects it to the foot pedal, which honestly, out of packaging, I'm not a fan of it being coiled up, because now I can't actually display this very well with the trap completely extended. So if it does break off, I don't know that I'm going to cry too much about it, but it is kind of a drag that, A, we don't get a version of the trap that's completely separate, so you can just hang it on his waist, and B, that they've packaged it this way so that it's kind of stuck coiled. I'm sure I can heat this and fix that, but I really don't want to have to do that. Anyway, minor quibbles here, but the trap on the back does have a hole that's designed to fit onto the trap holster on the Ghostbusters belt. And like I said, Ray has also got a trap holster, even though he didn't come with one, but you can take this and plug it right onto the figure, and with Winston or Ray, or even presumably future Ghostbusters in the line, have the heroes with the trap stored away on their utility belts. I think what I would have preferred to see is a separate trap accessory that's already wound up, one that you can unravel, and that fits on the figure more naturally once it's placed on the belt. As for the much-touted diorama piece, every figure in this line is coming with a piece of the rooftop from the end of the first Ghostbusters film. And when you get all the figures in the line, you'll be able to fully construct that massive display. And I need to warn you guys again, both of these diorama pieces had that same sort of dirt residue, I guess the leftover paint wash, that stained my review stand when I was reviewing Ray. So before you put these pieces anywhere you care about, you might want to give them a good rinse. Articulation-wise, Winston has a head that'll look left and right. It looks down, but it doesn't really look up so much. Forward rotation here at the shoulder, bends out from the body that far. Forward rotation at the elbow, and it bends down that far and back that far. The articulation is not hindered by the elbow pad because that does move around. Forward rotation at the wrist, the handle bend back that far and down that far. He has an upper torso rotation, I guess, or diaphragm joint that doesn't really move so much because of the proton pack, and it's hard to get a good grip on the figure to utilize that. Forward rotation here at the waist, leg moves forward that far. It moves back, not so far, out from the body pretty far actually. Upper thigh swivel. Now there's a yellow cable coming off this leg that plugs into the back of the belt. It doesn't actually get in the way of articulation, which is nice. The knees actually bend pretty nicely, they're double jointed. And then we have an ankle that'll bend down that far, up that far. And there's that Hasbro style ankle pivot that we've been seeing on a lot of Select figures lately. Admittedly, there are a lot of joints here, but it's still kind of rough to get this figure to stand on his own, and I do wish the elbows were double jointed. It would make positioning the figure with their neutrino one so much more dynamic. Height-wise, you can see that Winston does stand just a little bit over 7 inches tall. For you sci-fi fanatics, here he is compared to the NECA Ultimate T2 Terminator, and Season 1 Captain Picard from the Art Asylum Star Trek line. And finally, here he is compared to the 6-inch scale Marvel Legends Infinite series Wolverine.
Is it just me, Bub? Or did you look younger in Ghostbusters 2?
Is it just me? Or did you look older in X-Men Origins Wolverine than you looked in the first X-Men movie?
I don't know what movie you're talking about.
Alright, toy fans, well, that's my review of the Diamond Select Ghostbusters Winston Zeddemore figure released in 2016. Overall, like I said with my Ray review, this figure's got a lot of great ideas, but he just misses the mark in many places it counts. I wish the articulation was a little bit better. I was excited to get the trap accessory, but it's a little cumbersome with this guy. He's back heavy, and that face sculpt just isn't working for me. If you don't already own Mattel's line of Ghostbuster figures that came out in the last few years, and you've just got to have a collection of Ghostbuster figures, I'd say you're probably just better off getting the Toys R Us version of these figures that run about $10 cheaper. They may not include a diorama piece, but based on what I've seen so far, it's really hard for me to recommend buying all 15 figures in this series. Well, that's my review, toy fans. Once again, I'm feeling a little bit bummed about this figure. I was really excited for these Select Ghostbusters, but at least now I know what I'm in for. If you guys like what you saw here and appreciate me giving you an honest opinion, go ahead and give me a like. It'd really help me out and honestly make me feel better. Be sure to share this video with anyone you know who's interested in picking these figures up, and you guys can always keep up with me on Twitter and Instagram at D21Beast. Thanks for watching, and for all your figure reviews, you know who to call.